Hi guys, I'm Ryan Houston and welcome to my fly tying channel. Your video is about to start shortly. Please take this opportunity to hit the like button down below, leave some comments, tell your friends. Interaction, likes, subscriptions help my channel to grow and help me to keep producing content for yourselves. If you're new to my channel, check out the other videos that I've got. There are over 500 videos at this stage, so there should be something there for everybody. Again, video is about to start. Hit that like button down below. Hi guys, so we're going to create an articulated mouse or rat for Pike here. So the rear of the fly is going to be a 6.0 hook. This is a Sakuma 470 Top Gun. So we want something that has a decent gape on it or a decent sized hook because you're going to be making a bulky body out of essentially deer hair. So the idea here is that we will have the hook and then in front of it we're going to have a shank. So the shank, this is the shank. You can see that the two eyes are offset from each other, okay? So one is in a horizontal plane, one is in a vertical. So this one will link in like that and then we'll end up with this idea. So the shank wire is made out of 1mm stainless wire. You can cut that with side cutters and bend it with one of these loop forming pliers. So it's quite simple. You just bend that round and you end up with one eye and then create the other one in the opposite plane to that. Bend round, and what I tend to do here is to make the rear eye, so the one that's going to attach to the hook, bigger than the front one, and that can be done with these loop forming pliers because you can make 3 different sizes of loop. So see how quickly you can make the armature for it. So we put in our hook, into the vise, and I'm going to be using either 150 or 200 denier gel spun for this because you need a good strong thread. And as per usual, plenty of super glue. So we'll glue the initial tie in of that. So for the tail and the legs, there's only going to be 2 materials essentially in this fly, and that's going to be our deer hair and rabbit zonker. So I'm using natural or original zonker, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to tie a strip of that in, and that's going to be our tail. So we can leave that full like this if you want, or what I'm going to do to it is just to cut against the grain here and take the hair out of it, except for the tip. So we cut it off and leave a little bit on, so that'll give be our tail. Reason behind that, I suppose, is rabbit absorbs a bit of water, it can be heavier to cast, so if you want, leave it on. If you don't, take it off. But what I would say is I wouldn't go overly long in the tail because we don't want it coming right up around the front and wrapping our trace, etc. So for the body, I'm going to use a deer hair. But what you will have to consider here is the length of your deer hair to the size of the fly that you're tying. So this is actually quite a long deer hair here, and that'll allow me to tie that bit bigger of a fly. Some deer hair patches are only going to give you, very short stuff, maybe 15mm or so. Not going to be suitable for this, but you could tie a smaller mouse style pattern out of it. So if we take a healthy bunch of this, and I'm going to place it on here and I'm going to tie it in roughly around its middle here. Put on a couple of loose laps and then tighten into it. And tie through that. Now, I'm not going to be doing a whole big pile of neat trimming or anything in this fly, because I don't think it needs it. So the idea is that each consecutive bunch will have these natural tips to it, and then this to create the bulk for us. So we're going to put legs on, and the legs we're going to do in exactly the same way as we did the tail. So I have shorter strips of zonker here. And the deer hair that we have on already there will help to throw the legs out, as you can see. So we'll just trim that down and leave a little bit of the hair on the end of it. Makes it look like feet, paws. Trim it off. Glue the tie-in of it, and then we'll start going again with our deer hair. Put on your bunch, hold it around, put on a couple of loose laps and tighten it in. Wrap into that to hold it in place. Pull your tying thread through in a straight line and then repeat. So with this one, I think one more should take us to the head of the hook, which is the midpoint of the fly. Finish that off. Hold all that back and just super glue our finish point of that. Just holding it back, it'll give me a little bit of a shape, a little bit of a wedge shape to that. So that is the rear of our fly, and that in itself would catch you fish. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go underneath it and I'm going to trim off a little bit of the hair just to expose the point of the hook. I'd say if you're fishing in fairly weedy places, you could just ignore that altogether because the fish biting it should collapse it anyway. And we'll take that off to set aside for now. So our shank. So we're going to attach the hook into the bigger loop. That'll give it more movement, and then we'll bind all this together. But what I need to do is just to tighten my vise up so that it can tighten down onto the wire, because we're going from a thicker hook to a 1mm thick on this. So pass that through, as you can see. tighten up onto the wire, and now we'll bind down the shank. Just hold all three together. Just be careful because the cut ends of your wire can cut your tying thread. And bind the whole way along our shank like that, and that will give us the basis to tie the front part of the body on. So I will just glue those wraps for security and then proceed with the front part of the fly. So same again, big bunches of our deer hair. Pull back, pull the thread through. What I do, I might not burn or super glue every bunch, but I would probably do every second one, because this is the only thing here, because we can't just get as much super glue into it as maybe some of the other flies. We are using 200 Dernier gel spun, which will help anyway, but just to protect the tying, I think it's worth doing every now and again. Some people will stack that back. I don't think it's that important to really pack it. And if you have differences in colour in the patch of deer hair that you have, you can utilise that as you go along the fly. Give you a different effect. This middle portion, you can see I'm not tying across the middle, I'm tying more towards the base of it, and that's giving me more flare, more width here, so sort of a bulk, and then I'll take that down and get more 50-50 as we move towards the front. I just wanted it a little bit wider in the middle. So having got to this point, what we're going to do is put in another set of legs, so same as we had done before. We have two of these shorter zonker strips waiting. Trim off the fur again. So if we flip them over, you'll get the idea now of the shape with the four legs out swimming and the tail behind. Super glue that down. Keep going with the deer hair. So as you can see, we now have this sort of rat vole shape. If you want, you can continue further towards the head and trim it. You could step down onto a slightly smaller deer hair if you wanted. I'm just going to finish it off, I think, with one more bunch here, and then we'll get to finishing the fillet. So I'm going to trim that down a little bit. Super glue the front tie-in of that. So to finish that off, we need to put some eyes on them. So for that, I'm going to use a black eye. So I have a solid coloured black eye for this. These solid black, these are about I think they're 5 mil, 4 mil maybe. And what we'll do is we'll stick them in with 2-part epoxy as per usual, but just clear 2-part epoxy. To use a quick setting epoxy, this is a 5-minute. I'm going to use a cocktail stick or skewer or whatever. So you don't need to mix up a huge batch of this, but what you want to do is choose where the eye is going to go, and then use the skewer to stab the epoxy well down into the base of the tie-in, and that will give us a good solid foundation to get the eye onto it. You might have to adjust the eyes a little bit, just as it'll take a while because it's quite foamy in essence, the type of material we're trying with here. It can take a little while before the epoxy can be worked with there. I'm just going to trim off some of this under fur here. And then I'll keep testing the epoxy in the eyes, and I want to just get them pushed down into it a little bit, and as the epoxy just about set, you'll find it'll hold its position, you'll be able to get it in there, and a few sort of fibres will come up on the upper side of the eye, and a few will come over it on the underside of the eye, and that'll just give it more protection and so on. So that is our articulated rat, bull, whatever it is, for pike. And it's actually quite light. Yeah, it'll get water into it, but won't sit up like a cork, but as you pull it on a floating line, it will sit sort of right in the surface film and create that sort of swimming action. And as I said, we have the bigger loop at the back here, allowing this to freely move again for when you hook up. You won't hook every fish, I suppose, that takes you on these, because surface action is like that with pike, but hopefully it'll give you some fun. So give it a go. As I said, if you like the video tonight, give us a like, subscribe, tell your friends, check out all the other videos on the channel. You can follow me on Facebook as well, and you may find some of them on eBay too. So until next time, tight lines. Thanks for watching.